The air inside the Concord Hall on Varelli's Prime hung thick with tension, like static before a storm. Under the vast shimmering dome that mimicked the night sky of 1,000 worlds, over 200 species sat in tiered circles. Some were insectoid, their carapaces clicking softly. Others were gelatinous masses contained in transparent suits, or avian beings with feathers ruffled by the recycled air. At the very edge of the lowest ring, almost an afterthought, sat the human delegation. They were quiet, still, watching. Ambassador Elena Rostova sat at the center of her small team. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, her simple gray uniform unadorned compared to the jeweled robes and bioluminescent tattoos of others. She didn't fidget. She didn't whisper to her aides. She just watched and listened, her eyes sharp, missing nothing. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 12 years. 12 short years since they'd cracked faster than light travel and stumbled, wide-eyed and nervous, into a universe already mapped, governed, and divided. They were newcomers, outsiders, and everyone knew it. The topic of the day was the Helios Expanse, a region of space rich in rare minerals and stable wormholes. For decades, it had been a neutral zone, claimed by no one. But recently, human colonists, driven by Earth's growing population and dwindling resources, had begun settling on 3 small but habitable worlds there: Viridia, Kalis, and Thorn's Hope. They built farms, schools, power grids. They raised families under alien suns. They believed they were following the Council's own charter, peaceful expansion into unclaimed territory. But the Qatari hegemony saw things differently. The Qatari were tall, reptilian beings with obsidian black scales and eyes like molten gold. They had long considered the Helios Expanse part of their sphere of natural influence, even if they'd never officially settled it. Now, with humans there, they demanded action. Their representative, War Chief Vrax, stood at the central podium, his voice a low, rumbling growl amplified by the hall's acoustics. "The human incursion is an act of aggression," Vrax declared, tail lashing slowly behind him. "They plant their flags on soil that breathes our ancestors' dust. They dig into mountains that sing our old songs. This cannot stand. We demand the Council recognize Qatari sovereignty over the entire Helios Expanse and order the immediate removal of all human settlements." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many species nodded. The Qatari were powerful. Their fleet was vast. Their trade routes fed half the galaxy. It was easier to give them what they wanted than risk conflict. Then came the debate. Species after species spoke, not about law, not about justice, but about balance, about not upsetting the Qatari. A few, like the gentle, 6-armed Mirkal, suggested compromise, maybe shared stewardship, but their voices were drowned out by louder, more pragmatic ones. Elena Rostova listened as the council members spoke around her, about her people, as if they weren't even there. No one asked the humans for their side. No one mentioned the thousands of lives already rooted in the Helios soil. No one acknowledged the years of careful surveys, the environmental safeguards, the peaceful intentions. To them, humans were just another variable in a political equation, a small one at that. Finally, High Speaker Zorath rose. He was Velnian, tall and slender, with skin like polished silver and eyes that held the calm of deep oceans. His voice was soft, but carried absolute authority. "The Galactic Concord values peace above all," he said. "To avoid unnecessary friction, And in the spirit of interstellar harmony, the Council hereby recognizes the Qatari hegemony's historical and cultural claim to the Helios expanse. All non-Qatari settlements within the designated zone are to be dismantled within one standard galactic year. This decision is final. A wave of relief seemed to pass through the chamber. Crisis averted. The Qatari would be satisfied. Order maintained. But in the human section, silence turned to ice. Elena didn't shout. She didn't slam her fist on the table. Slowly, deliberately, she stood. The motion was so sudden, so quiet, that it cut through the murmurs like a blade. Every eye in the hall turned to her, the tiny, pale-skinned creature from a backwater world. She walked to the center podium, her boots clicking softly on the polished floor. She faced the council, her expression unreadable, but her posture rigid with resolve. "High Speaker Zorath," she began, her voice clear and steady, amplified just enough to fill the dome. "Members of the council, you have spoken of peace, but true peace is not bought by sacrificing the innocent. It is built on fairness, on respect, and on the right of every species to exist without fear of erasure." She paused, letting her words settle. "You did not consult us. You did not hear our evidence. You did not consider the lives you are uprooting, the children who were born on Viridia, the farmers who tilled Kalis's red soil, the doctors who heal on Thorn's hope. You saw only a problem to be smoothed over, a nuisance to be removed." Her gaze swept across the chamber, meeting the eyes of species who had voted against her people without a second thought. Humanity came to this council seeking partnership. We came with open hands and hopeful hearts. We believed in your laws. We trusted your justice. Another pause. The silence was now absolute. Not even the hum of the life support systems seemed to intrude. "That trust has been broken." She straightened her shoulders. "Therefore, effective immediately, the Terran Federation withdraws from these peace talks. We will not participate in a process that treats our existence as negotiable. We will not sit quietly while our homes are given away like trinkets at a market." A gasp ran through the assembly. Withdrawal? From the council itself? It had never happened before. Newcomers always stayed. They adapted. They compromised. "We do not seek war," Elena continued, her voice dropping slightly, but no less firm. "But we will defend our people, and we will remember who stood with us, and who turned away." With that, she turned and walked back to her seat. She gathered her data pad, nodded once to her stunned team, and led them out of the chamber. The great doors hissed shut behind them, sealing the humans out and the council in. Inside the hall, confusion reigned. Some delegates looked angry, others embarrassed. A few, like the Miracal elder, simply looked sad. High Speaker Zorath remained standing at the podium, his silver face unreadable. But deep in his ancient mind, a single thought echoed, cold and unfamiliar. Did we just make a terrible mistake? Outside, on the moon's surface, beneath alien stars, Elena Rostova took a deep breath of filtered air. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with grim certainty. The easy path was gone. Now, humanity would walk its own road, alone, if it had to be. And the galaxy would soon learn that humans, when pushed too far, did not break. They hardened, they endured, and sometimes they changed everything. News travels fast in space, faster than ships, faster than light itself, it seems. when it's carried on waves of panic and curiosity. Within hours of Ambassador Elena Rostova walking out of the Concord Hall on Virelli's Prime, the message reached Earth. It spread through planetary networks, jumped to orbital stations, and raced along subspace relays to the farthest human colonies. "Humans withdraw from peace talks," the headlines read. "Council gives our worlds to the Qatari." Rostova walks out. What now? On Earth, reactions were split like cracked glass. In the cities of New Delhi, Sao Paulo, and Nairobi, crowds gathered in public squares. Some waved flags and chanted Rostova's name, calling her a hero for standing up to alien powers that treated humanity like children. Others stood quietly, faces tight with worry. They remembered the stories their grandparents told of wars on Earth, of nations falling because they stood alone. "We need the galaxy," one man said on a street corner in Berlin. "Without trade, without allies, we're just a rock in the dark." But on the frontier colonies, places like New Carthage, Eos 7, and Viridia, the mood was different. These were people who had left Earth not for comfort, but for chance. They'd built homes on harsh worlds with their own hands. They knew how to fix broken air filters, grow food in thin soil, and fight off dust storms that lasted weeks. When they heard the news, they didn't panic. They checked their weapons. They reinforced their perimeter fences. They called town meetings under open skies lit by alien suns. "We're not leaving," said Mayor Leon Tran of Viridia, speaking to a crowd of farmers and engineers. "This soil feeds our children. This air fills our lungs. Let them come. We'll meet them at the gate." Back on Earth, the unified government convened an emergency session. President Eris Thorne, a calm, silver-haired woman with eyes that had seen too many crises, listened as generals, diplomats, and scientists argued in hushed, urgent tones. Some urged immediate re-engagement with the Council. "We can still fix this," said Minister Cho. "Send a new delegation. Apologize if we must." But General Marcus Thorne, no relation to the president, though both came from the same old military family, shook his head. "Apologizing won't bring back our worlds," he said, voice low but firm. "And it won't stop the Qatari from testing us. They smell weakness. If we beg now, they'll take more tomorrow." The president looked at the live feed from Viridia, where children played near solar farms, unaware that their home had just been handed to reptilian warlords in a room millions of light years away. She made her decision. "Tell all colonies to go to alert level 2, she ordered. "Double patrols, secure all comms, and get me a direct line to Ambassador Rostova. We stand with her." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council reacted with something close to amusement. High Speaker Zorath returned to the Velnian capital, certain the humans would come crawling back within weeks. After all, they depended on galactic trade for advanced medical tech, rare metals, and even certain food supplements. Without access to the Concord's shared networks, their economy would crumble. Their ships would stall. Their people would suffer. "They are emotional," Zorath told his advisors. "Proud but fragile, like young trees in a storm. They will bend. They must." The Qatari, for their part, celebrated. War Chief Vrax declared a feast in his command citadel. "The soft-skinned ones fold like paper," he laughed, tearing into roasted sky beast with sharp claws. "Soon their little huts will be ours, their machines, our toys, their women, our servants." His officers roared in approval. But not everyone in the council shared their confidence. On the ocean world of Luminara, the Luminari, a species of graceful bioluminescent beings who communicated through shifting colors and harmonic hums, watched the news with concern. They had traded with humans for years. Human doctors had helped cure a strange plague in their deep-sea nurseries. Human engineers had helped stabilize their floating cities during magnetic storms. To them, humans were not weak. They were clever, kind, and stubborn. "The humans do not bluff," murmured Elder Nayla, her skin pulsing soft blue with worry. "If they say they will not return, they mean it." Similarly, among the Mirkal, a hive-minded insectoid species known for their logic and precision, doubt began to grow. Their leader, Hive Mind Kess, reviewed the data: human population growth, industrial output, ship production rates. The numbers were rising steadily, quietly. And unlike other species, humans didn't rely on a single homeworld. They were scattered across dozens of systems, each colony self-sufficient, each linked by loyalty, not just law. "Removing them from the Helios expanse may not be as simple as the Council believes," Kess transmitted to its inner circle. "They dig in, they adapt, they multiply." Back on Earth, life went on, but quieter. Schools held drills. Factories shifted production from consumer goods to defense components. Families checked emergency kits, yet there was no mass fear. Instead, a strange calm settled over the planet. People spoke less about aliens and more about neighbors. They shared food, repaired each other's fences, taught children how to purify water. It was as if the threat from the stars reminded them of what they already had: each other. Ambassador Rostova, now back aboard the human diplomatic vessel Horizon, sat alone in her quarters. She stared at a small photo on her desk, her niece, born on Kylus, holding a flower grown in red soil. She hadn't slept in 2 days, but she felt no regret, only resolve. She opened a secure channel to General Thorne. "Marcus," she said, voice tired but clear. "They think we're bluffing. Let them keep thinking that. For now." On the bridge of the Horizon, outside her door, crew members moved with quiet purpose. No one shouted. No one panicked. They trusted their ambassador. They trusted their leaders. And most of all, they trusted each other. Far away, on the edge of the Helios expanse, a Qatari scout ship drifted near the orbit of Thorne's Hope. Its sensors scanned the surface: farms, power lines, a schoolhouse, no weapons visible, no defenses, just people living ordinary lives. The Qatari captain smirked. "Soft," he muttered, "like fruit ready to fall." He did not see the hidden drone nestled in the canyon below, watching him. He did not know that every move his ship made was being recorded, analyzed, and sent back to Earth in real time. He did not understand that humans had learned long ago. When you're the smallest in the room, you watch, you learn, and you wait. The galaxy thought humanity was finished, that they would fade back into silence, ashamed and broken. But on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 quiet acts of preparation, humans were doing the opposite. They were getting ready, not for war if they could help it, but for survival. And if survival demanded strength, then strength they would show. The Council had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs, and the stars would bear witness. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility carved into solid rock and shielded by layers of magnetic alloy, General Marcus Thorne stood before a wall of live feeds. Each screen showed something different. Shipyards near Jupiter humming with activity, asteroid miners rerouting cargo, colonies running silent drills under cover of night. But his eyes were fixed on one image, a sleek black vessel floating in the void beyond Neptune. It had no markings, no visible weapons, just smooth curves and an eerie stillness. "That's the Wraith," said Dr. Lin May, the lead scientist of Project Veil. She stood beside him, arms crossed, her face tired but proud. "It just came back from its final test. It sat 10 kilometers from a Qatari patrol ship for 6 hours. They never saw it, never even scanned in its direction." Thorne didn't smile. He rarely did, but something in his shoulders relaxed, just a little. "Good," he said, "because we're out of time for hiding." For years, Earth's Strategic Defense Directorate had worked in secret. While diplomats smiled at galactic summits and traders bartered for warp core parts, scientists and engineers built something new. Not bigger bombs or faster guns, but smarter ways to survive. The key was quantum resonance shielding. It didn't hide ships by bending light or absorbing radar. Instead, it made them out of phase with normal space-time. To sensors, they simply didn't exist. Like ghosts, coupled with neural-linked AI pilots who could react in milliseconds and zero-point energy cores that needed no fuel, these ships changed everything. They weren't meant for invasion. They were meant for deterrence, for saying, "You can't touch us." But Thorne knew technology alone wouldn't save them. It was how they used it that mattered. He turned to the secure comms station behind him. "Patch me through to Varelli's Prime. Encrypted channel. Priority Alpha." Minutes later, High Speaker Zorath's silver face appeared on screen. He looked calm, as always, but there was a tightness around his eyes. The news from the frontier wasn't good. Human freighters had stopped delivering neodymium-117, a rare isotope critical for stabilizing warp drives across the galaxy. Without it, trade routes slowed. Medical ships delayed. Even council envoys found their vessels glitching mid-jump. "General Thorne," Zorath said, voice smooth. "To what do I owe this unexpected contact?" Thorne didn't waste words. "You gave our worlds to the Qatari. You called us emotional. You assumed we'd beg to come back." Zorath remained silent. "Well," Thorne continued, "we won't beg, but I'm giving you a warning. Not as a threat, as a fact." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "If the Qatari move against any human settlement, even one person, we will respond. Not with war fleets, not with fire, but with silence, with absence. We'll vanish from your maps, your supply chains will break, your tech will fail, and you'll never know where we are until it's too late." Zorath's expression didn't change, but his fingers twitched slightly, a Velnian sign of deep concern. "The Council seeks peace, General, not escalation." "Then make peace with reality," Thorne said. "We're not leaving our homes, and we won't be erased because you wanted an easy solution." The call ended. Thorne exhaled slowly. He knew Zorath wouldn't act yet. Pride would stop him. But the seed was planted. Back on Earth, the public still didn't know about the Wraith-class ships. Only top military and government officials did. Most citizens believed they were defenseless, and that was fine. Fear kept people sharp. Hope kept them working. But secrets kept them safe. In orbit above Luna, a hidden dock released 3 more stealth vessels into the dark. Their mission wasn't to fight. It was to watch, to learn, to be ready. Meanwhile, on Viridia, young engineer Javi Morales fixed a broken irrigation line under twin moons. He'd heard the rumors. Qatari scouts had been spotted near the outer farms. But he didn't carry a gun. He carried a data pad linked to the colony's early warning net. If anything moved in the sky, he'd know before it landed. And if it tried to land, well, the ground around Viridia wasn't just soil, it was laced with sensor webs and automated defense nodes disguised as rocks. Humans didn't build walls, they built webs, quiet, smart, and strong. On EO7, school children practiced emergency drills. Not how to run, but how to hide, how to signal silently, how to use handheld jammers to block enemy scans. Their teachers didn't scare them. They taught them, we protect each other. That's how we win. Even on Earth, changes were happening. Factories once making consumer drones now assembled micro-satellites. Universities ran simulations on cyber warfare and resource independence. Farmers grew new crops that needed less water, less soil, crops that could feed a world cut off from galactic trade. The humans weren't preparing for war, they were preparing for freedom. The freedom to exist without permission. And then came the first real test. A Qatari raiding party, small, fast, and cruel, struck a joint mining outpost on the edge of Mirakal's space. It wasn't human-run, but humans worked there, side by side with the insectoid allies. The Qatari killed 2 Mirakal overseers and took 3 human technicians hostage. They broadcast a message. This is what happens to those who stand with soft skins. The galaxy waited to see what Earth would do. Would they send a protest, a plea? Would they beg the Council for help? Instead, nothing happened. No fleet launched, no angry speech. Just silence. 3 days later, the Qatari raiders tried to return to their base. Their ship never arrived. It vanished from all tracking grids. No wreckage, no distress call, just gone. Rumors spread. Some said pirates took them. Others whispered of ghosts. But the Qatari knew better. They checked their logs, found strange energy echoes, patterns that made no sense. And on Earth, General Thorne reviewed the mission report from the Wraith 03. Clean extraction. Hostages rescued. Enemy vessel disabled with a neural pulse. Non-lethal, but total system shutdown. Left adrift in neutral space. No one died. But the message was clear. Touch our people, and you disappear. High Speaker Zorath received the report from his intelligence branch. He read it 3 times. Then he called an emergency meeting of the inner circle, something he hadn't done in 50 years. The humans are not bluffing, he told them, voice low. They have capabilities we did not account for, and they are willing to use them. One advisor scoffed. 1 ship? That changes nothing. Zorath looked at him, eyes cold. It's not about 1 ship. It's about what it means. They planned this for years, in silence, while we ignored them. He turned to the window, watching stars blink in the velvet dark. We thought they were children, he said softly. But children don't build ghosts. Across the human sphere, life went on. But now, there was a quiet confidence in the way people moved. They weren't victims. They weren't beggars. They were watchers, builders, survivors. And somewhere in the void between stars, a black ship drifted, unseen, unheard, waiting. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It would not get a second chance. The silence from Earth should have been a relief. Instead, it became a weight. In the halls of the Galactic Concord, whispers grew louder. The Qatari demanded answers about their missing raiding ship. The Mirkal asked why their joint outpost had been attacked. And the trade routes, once smooth rivers of goods and data, now choked like clogged arteries. Human freighters, once the quiet backbone of rare mineral delivery, had simply stopped coming. High Speaker Zorath felt the pressure like a stone in his chest. He had spent centuries guiding the council through wars, plagues, and rebellions. But this quiet withdrawal of a single species, was unraveling everything. It wasn't violence that scared him. It was absence. Humans weren't shouting. They weren't attacking. They were just gone. And in their absence, the galaxy began to crack. The first real sign came from the Luminari. Their deep-sea cities relied on human-made stabilizers to handle magnetic tides. Without regular shipments of neodymium-117, 3 floating districts began to drift. Elder Nayla sent a private message to Zorath. "We cannot hold without human parts. If this continues, lives will be lost. Not in war, but in slow decay." Then came the Mirkal. Their hive mind networks used human-designed quantum relays. When replacements stopped arriving, communication between colonies slowed. Hive mind Kess transmitted a blunt warning. "Our unity weakens. If humans do not return to trade, we may fracture. And a fractured Mirkal is a dangerous thing." Even neutral systems felt the strain. Medical ships couldn't reach distant worlds without human-crafted bioscanners. Food synthesizers failed without human-engineered nutrient cartridges. The galaxy had grown used to human reliability, quiet, efficient, always on time. Now that it was gone, the gaps showed everywhere. Zorath called a closed session with the Council's inner circle. Only 12 species attended. The Qatari representative, War Chief Vrax, sat with arms crossed, scales glinting with impatience. "This is nonsense," Vrax growled. "Let the soft skins starve in their holes. We don't need them." "You say that," replied the Mirkal delegate, voice calm but sharp, "because your ships still fly. Ours do not. Your children still breathe clean air. Ours cough in failing domes. You speak from strength. We speak from need." Vrax snarled, but said nothing. Zorath watched them. He saw something he hadn't seen in decades. Fear. Not of war, but of dependence. The galaxy had leaned on humanity without realizing it. Like a tree growing around a support beam, it had forgotten the beam was holding it up. Later that night, alone in his chamber, Zorath reviewed old files. He pulled up footage of Earth's first contact, grainy, shaky images of a small ship landing on Mars, humans stepping out in simple suits, hands raised in peace. They had asked only for a seat at the table, nothing more. And now, because the Council had taken that seat away, the whole table was shaking. He thought of Ambassador Rostova's face as she walked out. Not angry, not proud, just sad, as if she already knew what would happen. Meanwhile, far from the Concord, secret talks began. A Luminari envoy, cloaked in shimmering robes, met a human trader on a neutral station near Proxima Centauri. No weapons. No guards. Just 2 beings sharing tea under soft lights. "We do not wish to choose sides," the Luminari said, light patterns rippling across their skin in hues of blue and gold. "But we cannot watch our people suffer. Do you still make the stabilizers?" The human, a woman named Captain Isha Rao, nodded. "We do, but we don't give them away. Not anymore." "What do you want?" "Respect," Isha said simply, "and a promise. If the Council moves against us again, You won't stand silent." The Luminari considered this, then pulsed a soft green, their color for agreement. Similar meetings happened elsewhere. A Mirkal scout vessel exchanged data crystals with a human freighter in the Kuiper Belt. No words, just files, schematics for relay parts on one side, mineral maps on the other, a silent trade, a quiet alliance. Back on Earth, President Thorne watched these developments with cautious hope. "They're starting to see us," she told General Thorne in a secure briefing. "Not as beggars, as partners." "But trust is fragile," the general replied. "One mistake, and they'll turn on us again." On the frontier, life remained tense but steady. On Viridia, farmers harvested crops under watchful drones. On EO7, children played near shielded bunkers. No one panicked. They had work to do, homes to protect. And now, they knew they weren't entirely alone. The Qatari, however, grew restless. Their raids had yielded nothing. Their threats echoed into silence. Worse, some of their smaller allies began asking questions. Why provoke the humans? They kept the trade flowing. Now our engines sputter. Vrak silenced them with force, but doubt had taken root. Zorath knew he had to act, but pride held him back. To admit error would weaken his authority, yet to do nothing would risk the Concord itself. He called Ambassador Rostova, not through official channels, not with fanfare, just a private, encrypted message sent to the horizon. "I underestimated you," he wrote. "Not your strength, but your patience. The galaxy feels your absence, not as a loss of power, but of balance. Will you speak with me? Not as counsel and petitioner, but as equals." He waited 3 days for a reply. When it came, it was short. "Meet me at Station Theta 9. 1 week, no escorts, no recorders, just you and me." Zorath read the message twice. Then he smiled, a rare, small thing. For the first time in months, he felt hope. In the Concord Hall, the air grew heavier. Delegates spoke in hushed tones. Some whispered that the humans might return. Others feared they never would. The Qatari paced like caged beasts. The Mirkal stayed silent, watching. The Luminari glowed with quiet anticipation. And high above it all, unseen, a human stealth ship circled Varelli's prime, not to spy, but to wait, to see if the galaxy had learned its lesson. Because humans had learned theirs long ago. Kindness must be earned. Respect cannot be given. It must be shown. And peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of fairness. The Council had broken that peace. Now they would have to rebuild it, one honest word at a time. The Qatari struck at dawn, or what passed for dawn on the icy moon of Xylos 4. 3 raiders dropped from low orbit, silent and fast, their black hulls absorbing the weak light of a distant star. They hit the joint human Mirkal mining outpost with brutal efficiency. Plasma cutters sliced through outer gates. Stun grenades flooded the tunnels. Within minutes, the station was theirs. They didn't kill everyone. That wasn't the point. The point was fear. They dragged 2 Mirkal overseers into the open and executed them with ceremonial blades. Slow, public, cruel. Then they broadcast a message across all open channels. "This is the price of siding with soft skins. Leave them, or share their fate." The galaxy watched. Many turned away. Some nodded in grim approval. The Qatari were sending a message. Humanity had no real friends. Stand with them, and you fall alone. But Earth did not respond as expected. No fleet launched, no angry speech echoed from President Thorne's office, No desperate plea went out to the council. Instead, silence. Deep, heavy silence. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, on the 4th night, the first Qatari forward base vanished. It was a small listening post near the edge of Helios space. Just a dozen soldiers, a comms array, and a supply pod. Routine checks showed it online. Life signs normal. Then, without warning, all signals cut out. No explosion. No distress call. Just gone. The Qatari sent a scout ship. It found empty docking clamps, cold generators, and untouched rations, as if everyone had simply stepped out and never returned. 2 nights later, a second base disappeared. This one held nearly 50 troops. Again, no signs of battle, no wreckage, just silence. Panic spread through Qatari command. War Chief Vrax ordered full sensor sweeps, fighter patrols, jamming fields. "Find them!" he roared. "They're using stealth tech! We knew it!" But their scanners saw nothing. Their fighters found only empty space. Then came the third disappearance. A full supply depot. 3 ships, 200 soldiers, enough weapons to outfit a small army. Vanished between one hourly check-in and the next. Rumors exploded across the galaxy. Traders spoke of ghost ships that appeared out of nowhere, disabled entire bases with pulses of light, and left without a sound. Some said the humans had made a pact with ancient void dwellers. Others claimed they'd unlocked forbidden time tech. But the truth was simpler and far more frightening. Humans hadn't built weapons of war. They'd built tools of control. From hidden platforms beyond Neptune, the Wraith-class ships moved like shadows. Neural-linked pilots guided them with thought-speed precision. Quantum shields kept them unseen, and instead of firing missiles, they fired targeted EMP bursts, strong enough to knock out power, comms, and life support, but gentle enough to leave bodies unharmed. Then, automated drones would board, secure prisoners, and tow the empty vessels into deep storage orbits. No one died. But the Qatari lost everything. Men, ships, pride. On Xylos 4, the rescued human and Miracal workers were found safe inside a drifting cargo hauler, well-fed and unharmed. They reported being taken by silent figures in dark suits, who spoke only in calm tones. "You're safe now. Go home." The Miracal hive mind reviewed the data. No violence. No revenge. Just precision. Just justice. Hive mind Kess sent a single message to Earth. "You show restraint even when wronged. This is strength, not weakness." Back on Earth, General Thorne watched the reports roll in. His face remained still, but inside he felt a grim satisfaction. They weren't trying to win a war. They were trying to stop one before it began. "We don't want their worlds," he told his staff. "We just want them to understand we protect our own, always." The effect on the Qatari was immediate. Patrols grew nervous. Soldiers refused night shifts. Commanders argued over strategy. How do you fight an enemy you can't see, can't hear, and can't even prove exists? Vrax tried to spin it. "Cowardice!" he bellowed in a public address. "They hide like rats. They lack the honor to face us." But his own officers exchanged glances. Honor meant little when your base could vanish while you slept. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy took notice. The Luminari increased their secret trade with human stations. The Miracal began sharing early warning intel. Even neutral systems started asking questions. What if the humans are right? What if the Council was wrong? High Speaker Zorath received daily updates. Each report chipped away at his certainty. He had assumed humans were fragile. Now he saw they were patient. They didn't lash out. They waited. They learned. They acted only when necessary, and only as much as needed. He remembered Ambassador Rostova's words. "We do not seek war, but we won't be erased." She hadn't been bluffing. She'd been warning. On Viridia, people heard the news of the vanished bases. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They just worked harder, built stronger fences, taught their children new signals. 1 tap for safe, 2 for danger, 3 for silence. Because they knew this wasn't over. The Qatari wouldn't accept humiliation. They would come again, bigger, angrier. But humans were ready. In orbit, the Wraith fleet grew, not with fanfare, but with quiet purpose. Each ship carried no flag, no name, just a mission: protect, deter, preserve. And somewhere in the dark between stars, a Qatari scout ship drifted, scanning nervously. Its captain checked his sensors every few seconds. Nothing. Just empty space. He didn't see the black shape forming behind him, phasing back into reality like a shadow-given form. He didn't hear the soft hum as the neural pulse fired. And he never knew what hit him. When the Qatari command lost contact with that ship, War Chief Vrax finally understood. This wasn't a battle he could win with numbers or rage. The humans had changed the rules, and they were playing a game he didn't know how to join. Across the galaxy, a new truth settled in. Humanity might be small, but they were sharp. And when cornered, they didn't roar. They vanished. And in their vanishing, they became something far more dangerous than an enemy. They became a mystery, and mysteries in the end are harder to defeat than armies. Ambassador Elena Rostova stood alone on the observation deck of Station Theta 9. The station hung in the quiet dark between Proxima Centauri's twin stars, its metal skin warmed by distant light. Below her, through thick glass, floated the ruins of Outpost Xylos 4, the joint human Mirkal base the Qatari had attacked weeks earlier. Now it was a skeleton of twisted metal and frozen ice, drifting like a ghost. She didn't wear her uniform, just a simple gray coat, the same color as the Concord Hall floor where she'd walked out months ago. In her hand, she held a small data chip. On it was a message, one she'd written herself, word by word, late into the night. Behind her, technicians worked in silence, setting up the broadcast array. No flags, no logos, just a single camera pointed at her face. When the signal went live, it didn't go to one world or one council. It went everywhere, to Earth cities and Martian domes, to Mirkal hives and luminary seas, to Qatari warships and Velnian temples, to every species that had ever watched, judged, or ignored humanity. The galaxy held its breath. Elena looked tired, but not broken. Her eyes were clear. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm, steady, and carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories. "We came to you seeking partnership," she began, "not subjugation." She paused, letting the words settle across light years. "For 12 years, we followed your rules. We paid your tariffs. We respected your borders. We sent our best minds to your schools, our bravest pilots to your peace patrols, our farmers to barren worlds so others could eat. We asked for nothing but a fair place at the table." She turned slightly, gesturing to the wreckage below. "This outpost was built by human hands and Mirkal minds. It fed 3 colonies. It healed the sick. It shared knowledge. And for that, the Qatari burned it. They killed without reason. They broadcast cruelty as if it were strength. Her voice didn't rise, but something in it hardened, like steel cooling in water. The council watched, and did nothing. A ripple passed through the galaxy. Species shifted in their seats. Leaders glanced at each other. High Speaker Zorath, watching from his private chamber, closed his eyes. "We do not seek revenge," Elena continued. "We do not want your wars. But we will not be erased from maps drawn in our absence. We will not let our children grow up in fear because powerful beings decided we were too small to matter." She stepped closer to the camera. Her face filled the screen. Human, ordinary, real. "Return our worlds. Recognize our sovereignty. Admit your mistake, not to save us but to save yourselves. Because if you keep treating peace as something you give only to the strong, then peace is already dead." Then came the ultimatum. Not shouted, not threatened, just stated like a fact of nature. "High Speaker Zorath, War Chief Vrax, members of the Council, you have 7 days." She gave coordinates, a neutral station orbiting Proxima Centauri, the very place she now stood. "We'll be waiting, not with armies, not with weapons, just with truth." She paused, then softer, "And if you do not come, then know this. We will walk our own path. Alone, if we must, but we will walk it free." The broadcast ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, silence ruled the stars. Then chaos erupted. On Qatari homeworlds, War Chief Vrax smashed his command console in rage. "She dares?" he roared. "A soft skin gives us orders?" He ordered his fleet to full alert. "Let them wait. We'll meet them with fire." But his officers hesitated. They remembered the vanished bases, the silent raids, the way human ships appeared and disappeared like dreams. One captain dared to speak. "What if they're not bluffing, War Chief? What if they mean to cut us off completely?" Vrax silenced him with a glare, but doubt had taken root. On Earth, people gathered in streets and homes watching replays of the speech. Some cried, others stood tall. A child in Nairobi asked her mother, "Are we safe now?" The mother hugged her tight. "We're safer because she spoke." In the Mirkal hives, hive mind Kess pulsed a deep, thoughtful amber. She did not threaten. She invited. That is the mark of true power. The luminary elders glowed in harmonious blue. Approval, hope, resolve. And High Speaker Zorath sat alone in his chamber, staring at the empty screen. He thought of all the times he'd dismissed human concerns as emotional. He thought of the trade routes failing, the alliances fraying, the quiet dignity in Rostova's eyes as she walked out of the conquered hall. He had been wrong, not just about humans, but about peace itself. Peace wasn't about keeping the powerful happy. It was about protecting the vulnerable. It was about fairness. And humanity, small as they were, had just reminded the entire galaxy of that truth. He opened a secure channel. "Prepare my ship," he told his aide. "I'm going to Proxima." Back on station Theta 9, Elena removed her coat and handed it to a young technician. "Keep it running," she said, "just in case." She walked to the edge of the deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, decisions were being made. Lives hung in the balance, but she felt no fear, only clarity. Humans had spent centuries learning to survive on a fragile planet. They knew how to endure, how to rebuild, how to stand when everything else fell. Now the galaxy would learn what that meant. 7 days. That was all they asked for. Not for war, not for victory, just for respect. And if they didn't get it, then they would build a new kind of peace, one not granted by councils, but earned by courage. The stars watched and waited. The 7 days passed like slow heartbeats across the galaxy. On every world, in every system, beings watched the clock. Traders paused their routes. Soldiers stood down from alert. Even the Qatari held their breath. Though War Chief Vrax paced his command deck like a caged beast, claws scraping metal. Inside the conquered hall on Varelli's Prime, tension thickened the air. High Speaker Zorath had called an emergency session. No exceptions, no absences. Every member species had to attend. The Qatari delegation arrived late, scales dark with anger. The Miracle came early, silent and watchful. The Luminari glowed with soft, steady light, a sign of calm resolve. Zorath stood at the center podium, his silver skin reflecting the dim chamber lights. He looked older than he had a month ago. The weight of his mistake pressed on him like gravity. "The human ultimatum ends in 6 hours," he said, voice quiet but clear. "We must decide now. Do we hold to our old ruling or admit we were wrong?" A murmur rose. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others stared straight ahead. War Chief Vrax stood. "This is madness. We bow to no one, least of all soft skins who hide in the dark. Let them walk alone. Good riddance." But before others could agree, Hive Mind Kess rose. The Miracle delegates' many eyes blinked in unison. "You speak of pride, War Chief. But pride does not feed your people. Pride does not power your ships. Humans have shown restraint. They rescued their own without killing. They vanished your bases without bloodshed. That is not weakness. That is control. And control is more dangerous than rage." The Luminari Elder pulsed a deep blue. "Our cities sink without human parts. Our children sicken without their medicine. You call them soft? They are the roots holding this galaxy together. Pull them out, and everything falls." One by one, smaller species spoke up. Those who had traded quietly with humans, who had received aid during famines, who had learned from human teachers. They spoke not of fear, but of fairness. Even some of the Qatari's allies wavered. A reptilian trader from the Outer Rim admitted, "My fleet runs on human-made regulators. Without them, I lose half my cargo. Is pride worth starvation?" Vrax snarled, but his voice no longer carried the same weight. Zorath saw it clearly now. The Council wasn't just losing a species, it was losing its soul. Peace built on convenience, not justice, was no peace at all. He raised a hand. Silence fell. "Then let the record show," he said, "that the Galactic Concord admits error." A gasp rippled through the hall. "The resolution granting the Helios expanse to the Qatari hegemony is hereby rescinded. All human settlements within that region are recognized as sovereign territory of the Terran Federation. Further, any attack on human persons or property will be treated as an act against the Concord itself." He turned to Vrax. "The Qatari will withdraw all claims, immediately." Vrax's eyes burned. "You betray us." "I protect us," Zorath replied, "from our own arrogance." But it wasn't enough. Before the vote could be sealed, a new message arrived. From Station Theta 9. Not from Rostova. From President Aris Thorn herself. "We thank the Council for correcting its course," the message read. "But trust is not rebuilt with words alone. If humanity is to return to these talks, we require 2 things: formal reparations for the lives lost at Xylos 4, and a permanent human seat on the Council's Security Directorate." Silence again, deeper this time. A permanent seat? On the inner circle that decided galactic defense, no newcomer had ever been granted that. Not in 500 years. Vrax laughed bitterly. Now they demand power. This is greed, not peace. But Zorath didn't laugh. He thought of the ghost ships, the silent raids, the way humans had protected their own without starting a war. That kind of discipline deserved respect, not suspicion. He looked around the chamber, saw the Mirkal nodding slowly, the Luminari glowing green, approval. Even neutral species seemed to understand. Humanity had earned this. The Terran Federation has proven itself not just capable, but necessary, Zorath declared. Their technology, their restraint, their unity, they strengthen the Concord. To deny them a voice in security matters would be to repeat our mistake. He called for a vote. The tally came fast. 200 species, 183 in favor, 17 opposed, mostly Qatari allies. The motion passed. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People didn't cheer wildly. They hugged. They cried. They stood a little taller. In schools, teachers paused lessons to tell students. Today, we were seen. On Viridia, Mayor Lien Tran walked through her fields, touching the red soil. We stay, she whispered. We really stay. Back on Virelli's prime, Zorath prepared for the journey to Proxima Centauri. He would go alone. No guards, no entourage, just him and the truth. As his ship lifted off, he looked back at the conquered hall. For the first time in centuries, it felt less like a throne room and more like a home. The galaxy had changed, not because of weapons or threats, but because one small species refused to be ignored. And in doing so, they reminded everyone what peace truly meant. Not silence, but fairness. Not power, but partnership. The reckoning was over. Now, the real work could begin. The Proxima station hung in the quiet space between the twin suns, its metal hull warmed by soft golden light. It was small, just a docking ring, a meeting dome, and a few life support modules. No weapons, no guards. Just open doors and clear windows. A place built for talk, not war. High Speaker Zorath stepped off his shuttle alone. He wore no robes of office, just a simple silver tunic. His steps were slow but steady as he walked across the airlock bridge. Inside, Ambassador Elena Rostova waited. She stood near the center of the dome, hands clasped behind her back, eyes calm. No one else was there. Not yet. They looked at each other for a long moment. Two beings from different worlds, different times, different ways of thinking. Then Zorath bowed slightly, a gesture rare among Velnians. I came, he said. Elena nodded. I knew you would. She led him to a table in the center of the room. On it lay a single data pad. On the screen glowed the treaty, short, clear, written in both human and galactic standard script. Zorath read it carefully. It confirmed the return of the Helios worlds. It promised reparations for Xylos 4, funds, materials, and joint memorials. It granted humanity a permanent seat on the Security Directorate with full voting rights. And it included a new clause. No future council decision affecting a member species could pass without that species' direct input. It was not a surrender. It was a rebirth. Zorath placed his palm on the pad. A soft chime sounded. The treaty was signed. Outside, ships began to arrive. Not warships, diplomatic vessels. The Mirkal came first, their smooth craft docking with silent grace. Then the Luminari, their ship glowing like a living pearl. Even a few neutral species appeared, observers, now believers. But the Qatari did not come. War Chief Vrax had refused. Yet even that felt different now. His absence wasn't a threat. It was isolation. The galaxy had moved on without him. Inside the dome, the real work began. Not with speeches, but with questions. "How do your shields work?" asked a Miracall engineer. "Can we share medical data?" asked a Luminari elder. Elena answered openly, honestly. No secrets, no games. Because that was the lesson humanity had taught them. Trust is built in daylight, not shadows. Back on Earth, people watched the live feed in homes, schools, and public squares. They didn't cheer. They didn't cry. They just smiled, quietly, deeply. A child in Nairobi turned to her mother and said, "Now they see us." Her mother held her hand and whispered, "Now they always will." On Viridia, farmers returned to their fields with lighter steps. On EOS 7, teachers resumed lessons with new hope. The fear hadn't vanished, but it had been replaced by something stronger: belonging. In the weeks that followed, changes spread through the galaxy like ripples in water. Human engineers helped repair failing systems on a dozen worlds. Miracall scientists shared hive network designs to improve early warning systems. Luminary healers and human doctors opened joint clinics in neutral zones. The Concord Hall on Virelli's Prime was rebuilt, not in grandeur but in openness. New seats were added. Human chairs, simple and strong, stood beside ancient thrones. And when the security directorate met for the first time with Elena Rostova at the table, no one spoke over her. No one dismissed her words. They listened, because they had learned the hard way. Silence is not weakness. Patience is not fear. And the smallest voice, when it finally speaks, can shake the stars. Years later, historians would mark this moment as the true beginning of the Second Concord era, a time when the Galactic Council shifted from a club of the powerful to a true union of equals. It wasn't perfect. Disagreements still happened. Old wounds took time to heal, but the foundation was fairer now. And at the heart of it all stood humanity, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as partners. General Marcus Thorne retired soon after, returning to a quiet farm on Mars. When asked why he stepped down, he simply said, "My job was to protect them until they were seen. Now they are." President Eris Thorne continued to lead, but with a lighter heart. She often visited schools telling children, "You don't have to be the loudest to matter. You just have to stand firm." And Ambassador Elena Rostova? She stayed on the council, not for glory, but for balance. She spoke rarely, but when she did, the hall fell silent. Not out of habit, but respect. One evening, long after the treaty was signed, she stood again on the Proxima Station's observation deck. The stars glittered around her, endless and old. She thought of the journey, the fear, the silence, the waiting. And she thought of the words from an old Earth poem she'd read as a girl. "We are not makers of history. We are made by it." But maybe, just maybe, they had made a little of it too. The galaxy had once thought humans were too small to matter. Now they knew better, because sometimes the smallest spark is the one that lights the darkest sky. And from that day on, no one spoke for humanity again. They only spoke to them.